Was writing Little Earthquakes a cathartic experience for you?
In making the album, I've used it as a way to completely reconstruct the way that I think. So if you want to call it cathartic, I just feel that for me, having a pizza can be cathartic, you know? So what I did was try and recondition myself. I have to work on that every day. But we're brought up to think a certain way. And we're not even aware of it. There's always a subtext that's running besides the conversation that's happening at the same time. Like right now, everybody's trying to find enough self-worth to come to the table, me included. But it's a bit different because you came to interview me, and I understand that relationship. But what happens every time you have dinner with somebody, you think you're having a date. There are many things that are going on at that table. This is with absolutely everything. So, writing these songs, believe it or not, taught me what it is that I'm really thinking, and they gave me the keys to my subconscious. The subconscious is where we mostly work from. But yet, none of us really know how to get to the subconscious. So what you do is you come and bring me your little credit cards of how you want me to view you, and I bring you mine of how I want you to view me. That's not necessarily who you really are, because we've decided what we want people to see of us. So we're not really dealing with, how do I know who you are? I don't know who you are. I'm sitting here trying to have a conversation with this person that maybe I'm with on the road for 2 weeks. Say they come and jump on the road. But if they can't admit that they're a control freak, if they can't admit that what they're trying to do is break everybody down, their warfare, the real war is with thoughts these days. The weapons are a distraction. You know, you can get your blood and your skin ripped off and stuff, but the real war is breaking you down here and here. So that's what I've tried to do, is write so I know what I'm really thinking. So if I want to strangle you, I know why I want to strangle you, instead of just, what is it that you said that could affect me so much? I have to go deal with me instead of strangling you.
You spoke about getting in touch with your subconscious. Describe the process.
There are some wise women that I've run into who have given me some tools, but one of the biggest tools that started it was 15 minutes a day was how it all started. When my first record bombed, I had to deal with a self-worth problem. It's very easy for you to feel good about yourself when you have your job and you have your friends and your girlfriend and all that stuff. But if you had it all stripped away from you, it'd be very interesting to see what your view of yourself is. You know? So I was stripped of many things. And I ended up on my kitchen floor, really. And I was told that the first step in finding out how you think is to spend 15 minutes a day, because you can't usually handle more than that in the beginning, of honesty with yourself. 15 minutes is a lot of time to be honest with yourself when you've rarely done it in your life. So it'd usually be in the bathroom, because that's the most intimate place, much more so than the bedroom is the bathroom. I mean, if you can be in a bathroom with somebody and really be in it, that says a lot more than being in a bedroom. So I would spend the time in the bathroom for 15 minutes being honest. No censorship. That means not how you should think. Not what you think you think. Because we don't really think what we think. Almost anybody could be broken down. If somebody's good and you have them in a room alone, especially for 2 days, you can have them talking circles around themselves. Because very few of us really say, yeah, I'm scared. Say, yes, I have the potential to be violent. Very few people are willing to admit anything that in their mind is a weakness. So I started being honest for 15 minutes a day, and it was excruciating how I really felt. When I felt like I was strong and being really clever, what I was really doing was I was being totally intimidated and tried to make another person feel bad about themselves. I mean, I would rationalize everything. You can justify anything. So that's how it started. And then after the first 6 weeks of that 15 minutes of honesty, I was shocked to see what I was really thinking and really feeling. That means if you don't want to talk to your mother on the phone, you say, I'm so sick of my mother calling me, or whatever it is. No censorship. If you feel like you want to jump somebody's bones, I don't care how old they are, I don't care what sex they are. If you're turned on, you say, I had these feelings, and you might be so horrified. But you must admit things to them yourself, because they don't necessarily mean what you think they mean. You have to start digging. You know, you open up this tunnel, and it's very scary because we suppress what we feel. We have such judgment. And then once I worked through that, then I would start asking questions, but not at first. You don't question anything, not at first. And I did this alone, so it was almost as if I was my own teacher. I was my own conscience. And that's how it started.
You're very critical of Christianity and organized religion, yet you've spoken of your own Jesus complex. And in fact, you've even said you've wondered what it would be like to make love to him. Explore those perspectives.
God's law and man's law are two different things to me. What mankind and womankind have made of religion, whether it be Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, whatever, is very different from what the truths were. Now, to try and apply something even 20 years ago to today, there are truths in all things that you can glean out, but you have to look at what's happening today. To have 12 wives at one time was looked upon as an everyday thing for many reasons. There were more women to men that time. They were trying to get tribes going. It was looked at very differently. A man having 12 wives today is looked upon very, very differently now. Women having no say, which they have until very recently in their life, and in some parts of the world today, many parts of the world, still have no say. Why isn't it changing? So when we talk about religion and my unacceptance of the institution, it's because it must be held accountable for its abuse of the truth. And it has abused the truth, all of them. So my relationship with Jesus, being brought up as a good Christian girl, it's an attraction to a near quote-unquote perfect man. And it's also a resentment and a hurt. Hurt can turn to hate because you hurt so bad that he has denied, through the books anyway, sexuality with a woman. There's a real resentment that I have towards the idea that a perfect man, quote unquote, wouldn't soil his hands, so to speak. So there's a lot of that at play there. Respect for the man because of his strength and his compassion and clarity, and yet at the same time resentment that he felt sex with a woman, or with anything, was not holy. He didn't say that, but so that's how I feel.
You once said your life went wrong when you stopped talking to the fairies and lost the magic. How did you get it back?
Well, when I'm really the person that I feel I am, without trying to be what those around me want, then I am closest to things that aren't in body. I mean, I believe in things that aren't this. I think they're all around us. I think it's kind of arrogant to think that just because you have a body, that's the only consciousness that there is. That's really small-minded. And if you want to look at mythology, from the Celts to the Native Americans to the Native peoples here to, you can go to any culture where they believe in the spirit world. And if you don't believe it, then you don't believe it. How can you even comment on it if you don't believe? But if you do believe, then you're rewarded because you're working off instinct. It's not just what you see. What we see with our own eyes and hear with our own ears is very limiting. We don't see far. We only hear so much. If we didn't have microscopes, we wouldn't know what was going on with the whole other world that was, smaller than what we can see with our eye. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. That whole thing about if a tree falls in the forest and you don't hear it, does it make a sound? Head of a record company said to me, "Of course it doesn't." And I just smiled, because there you go. Of course it doesn't. 500,000 people get blown up and you don't know about it. Doesn't mean they don't get blown up. It's the same thing. The world just doesn't revolve around you and me. There are so many universes, and that's so exciting. But what happens in here is a reflection of what I'm capable of understanding out here. You cannot be, you don't have a shit planet because you have a clear thinking people. It doesn't happen. And you don't have a shit people and a healthy planet. It will not happen. We're reflections of each other. That's all it is.
How much control do you have over how you're promoted to the press and public?
I have as much control as I decide what comes out of my mouth. I decide what the press writes. Because, what people read, it's only half me, the other half is you. Anything that you read in the press, half of it comes through you and your experience and your openness or your closedness, your capacity. So the other half is me. What you get a lot when you read from those articles, a lot of it is their perspective. It's what we said before. If you're willing, if you want to come in and see something specific and you've got your mind made up, then you will.
You've been incredibly prolific over the last year. You're perhaps the first artist in history to release more B-sides than album tracks. Were these tracks all written during the Little Earthquakes period?
It was all at the same time. There are a few that were written recently this year, which is kind of a drag because I put them on B-sides and I have nothing to make a new album with. I have nothing.
Yeah.
No. Nothing. I don't know what's going to happen. I have an idea of something I want to do, which I think is going to make a lot of people really wary. But I'm going to do it because I think it'll be good fun. I'm going to experiment with the piano in many ways. I don't want to talk too much about it because it has to develop itself, but I want to lock myself away and start fresh. I can't try and write silent again. If I do, it's trying to hang on to something that came from a real place, and it wouldn't come from a real place now. Do you see what I mean? If I tried to write silent now, it would be trying to write silent instead of expressing. Sugar, the pool, here in my head, they were all written this year. The others were recorded during the album, like Take to the Sky.
Quickly, that's about why I can't.
Yes. Yeah.
Why not save these songs for the next album?
I love Dutchman. I guess there's a part of me that wishes I would have, but you know, if I save it for the next album, I feel like I'll be trying to hang on, crossing my fingers, hoping that I will have retained that place of, see, I got a lot of acceptance from this. And I can't go into the next project holding on to that. I have to go now and explore now some more, because that's one reason that you guys respect me, is because I went into this exploring and completely expressing for the sake of that. And I feel like if I held on to the B-sides, I'm holding on to the past, because I feel like I reached something instead of going, wait a minute, I can make another dish. If it's got to be here, and I feel like so many artists try and hang on and make the same record over and over and over again, or hold on to that time. But you know what? Everybody else passes you by. All the people that are listening to you one week, you try and hold on to that moment, and they've moved on. You have to move on, and it's a scary thing, because people might not like the direction you take, but you can't stop growing. And I know this here. So I have to apply it, because I realize that it's the only way to make exciting music. So I have to challenge myself now.
The song Tear in Your Hand has a reference to the Sandman comic book series. Talk about your friendship with Neil Gaiman.
Neil and I have become really good friends. We would go out a lot in England together and have a cup of cappuccino and talk. The way we met was a friend of mine who loves comics dropped out of art school in LA, Parsons, needed a place to stay, needed a place to crash. I've known him for years. He dated and dumped a very good friend of mine. They're quite a few years younger than I am. So I let him stay at my place. It was going to be for 2.5 weeks. Well, it became 3 months, rants. This is during the making of the album, before I moved to England, so it was almost 3 years ago when Rance came to my place. I was spending a lot of time writing at Eric Ross's place, who I have quite an involvement with. And Rance had all this stuff going on in my pad. Hundreds of candles. The Ministry playing. Sandman comics. I'd walk in. And finally, I just decided to get educated. Instead of resisting, I turned over the keys and started to immerse myself in what he found so interesting about his world. So I read everything. And Rance gave Neil a tape of Tear in Your Hand at a signing before it was on the record, before I moved to England. And Neil had said, well, this is pretty good. Because he gets, songs every day. Orpheus, and he called me up. And we became friends. He came to my shows in England, and that's that story.
The success of your cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit has sometimes eclipsed the profile of Little Earthquakes itself. Has that been a blessing or a curse?
Never a curse, just because the song was so massive that, it's like one of the biggest songs of years to come. So I don't think that, if you think about it, it's not like trying to remake a song and make it a hit. That's not the intention. I think everybody knows that. I did it to just show a different perspective on a very hard tune, and to still retain a level of the horror. That song is really, its content is horrific to me. I feel many things about that song, but when I heard it, it's about abuse to me, that song. And I wanted to take it to the piano because people have a concept of what the piano is.
How do you look back at Why Can't Tori Read, and how would you assess the distance traveled with Little Earthquakes? I'm also curious how you would contrast that with how the media has perceived the shift.
Well, I claim complete responsibility for the content of Why Can't Tori Read. That album cover, the fact that I didn't stand up for the band or the songs that had been written during the band, I allowed it to happen. I allowed the band to be ripped to shreds. Matt Sorum was the only person that was asked to come back and play after he was, said no to everybody, but Matt was brought back because the drummer wasn't working that they had gotten. So they brought in the studio people, and I allowed this to happen. The other side of the coin is I claim complete responsibility for Little Earthquakes, the content. Now, if you call Me and a Gun or Silent All These Years a corporate makeover, you really have a distortion on reality. And it's so ludicrous that I was laughing my head off. Because, again, if you're going to take responsibility, you have to really take it. So, as I said to you, that girl on the cover of Why Can't Tori Read, my body was in much better shape, and I do regret the fact that I've got dent marks on my body, and I was lean and mean then, physically. And I chose my hairspray. I chose to not stand up. And yet I chose to stand up, finally, with little earthquakes. So the funny thing is, you know, you can't talk about the things I'm talking about and just be given these things to say by the press. You don't write the things I'm writing about, and then, you know, what did they make over? The fact that I get up in the morning and wash my hair and walk out and this is what you get? Where is the makeover? That somebody that's really talented took my pictures, Cindy Palmano, and didn't, you know, give me false tits? I mean, I just couldn't understand the logic in that one. That one really threw me. Well, I think it came from a bitterness, from, we won't get into it, but one of the guys from the NME specifically came out with the big story. And I talked to them all about this. It's like they came up with something that I was hiding in my life. How can you hide anything when you're talking about the things I'm talking about? You don't have those songs without having serious scrapes on your knees. I've never pretended to be a virgin. Never. At all. So it's like, of course I've done some stuff. Of course I've been dishonest with myself. We all have. I'm just trying to now make a choice about why I'm making music. So it was involved, that one.
Your songs have brought some societal issues to the fore that many choose to ignore. Is that a core mission of your music?
Where are the visionaries? Everybody is encouraged to listen to our dying leaders. Dying mean their ideology is dying. We have to, instead of running to Christianity or running to Islam or running to whomever, we have to move forward. You bring the truth, you glean it, like you separate the pits from the fruit, and you take with you what you've learned. We don't know how to think for ourselves, how to reason. And this is what this generation needs to do, is stand up instead of passing the sickness on to our kids. Because please tell me, what is the difference between us and our great-grandparents? Because believe me, when we're 50 years old, there's going to be a young generation going, those fucking old farts. They're so close-minded. Where's the new thought going to come from? When are men and women, instead of blaming each other, when are we really going to look at ourselves? And you see, what happens with blame is, if we're married or what have you, and you withhold from me, I'm going to get you back if you can't honor me. You know how I get you back is I'm going to get you back sexually. I'll withhold there. So what happens is we have a son. I put certain things into my son, my relationship, whatever, where I get it from him, so that he and I develop something. How many of you men have a relationship with your mother that's very involved? 4 out of 5 men that I run into, it's very involved. There's so much going on in this dynamic. Because, and then what happens? That son marries a girl, they go and have a son, because until we stand up and say, hang on a minute, we have to look at the sickness. What have I taken on from my parents, from the teachers, from those that are running the media, that I make my own belief system, my own ideology? When do I stand up and say, I have to admit that I'm basically sick, and I have to find my own thoughts? Whether you go to Alice Miller, student of Carl Jung, who's writing these books, Drama of the Gifted Child, The Untouched Key. Do you see where you really go in there and not become our parents? We've all become our parents. Who have become our parents? Who have become our parents? We just have Manola Blahnik shoes, or that's all that changes. We put it in a little bit of a different slant. But what do the 60s kids become? Let's be fair about this. I don't give a shit that they smoked pot in 1968 or did mushrooms. I don't care. Half of them are right wing now. Do you see? It doesn't matter what you did when you were 22. Where do you stand today? These parents, now, many of them, they look at their kids and it's win the swim team competition. This, that, and they have become, many of the people I know there have become that which they were fighting when I knew them as teenagers against their parents. And will become the same thing. So please, throw these things around and find your own thought, because that's what we need to lead us out of this confusion. And I'll vote for you.